Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. And today I'm going to talk about an important topic, which is uploading files in your application on a very busy application. Now, what is the difference between uploading files normally and in a very busy application? So, for that, to explain it in details, I have this diagram in front of me. Imagine you have an application, a social media website where you have a lot of users and they are uploading videos on your social media application, almost like Instagram. Now, if the file uploads are being handled by your EC2 instance, then can you see the flow is user uploads to EC2, EC2 then uploads to S3, and then the S3 tells EC2 that the file upload is done. In this process, what happens is the user needs to upload to the server, and then the server does a postman's job to upload it to S3. If you just imagine that this user, if it is really a list of 1,000 users, then we are talking about 1,000 users pushing their file in the form of binary data to the EC2 instance, and the EC2 instance is busy uploading file to S3. And hence, you can have a situation where your resources are being used just to do a very simple job of uploading files, which definitely in a largest application you don't want to do. On top of it, there is also a thing that in this particular case, you will be using a lot of internal bandwidth, which is between EC2 and S3, which compared to a user to S3 bandwidth will be a little more costly because it is within the Amazon's internal network, right? Whereas this is over a public network. So overall, I would say if you have a busy application and you know that there are going to be a lot of file uploads, this particular way of uploading files can be a problem. However, if you understand this is the exact way that if in a Laravel application you use the file storage facade, that's what is going to happen, because your file first goes to the server in a temporary folder, and then from there it is uploaded to the S3 bucket, right? Which again, in a normal application, it is completely fine. I'm not saying you have to ignore it for every scenario, but where there is a lot of files, we come to this particular thing. And what are we doing over here? Obviously, the first thing that you can understand is this particular one is a little more complicated compared to the previous one. Why? Because in here, what we are trying to do is, if you see, the user uploads to S3. S3 tells the user, and then the user tells that the file has been uploaded to the EC2 server. Now, in this, obviously, there are multiple steps and there are certain security concerns. So we will handle that, but I would like you to understand that it is definitely much more complex. This is a three-step process. User starts file upload, server does validation, starts the upload process, completion is done, EC2 basically understands that. Now compare this one. User validates the file on front end. Obviously, we will have to do some kind of validation that is required in this approach as well. But we have to do one round at the front end. Once this is done, I can't upload it to the server, but I can't upload directly to S3 as well, because S3 needs AWS key and secret to upload, and I can't send that to the client. So what do? We create a signed URL. The front end tells the S3 bucket through an API. Okay, this is where the server comes into picture. The front end makes an API call and requests for a signed URL. The front end says that this is going to be the file, this is going to be the path, this is some other details, the metadata of that file, and makes that API call. Server gets that. Server creates a signed URL. And while doing this, we use the AWS secret, the key and the secret to generate that signed URL. So we have never exposed our secrets to the end client. The end client makes API call, gets the signed URL back, and then the client is ready to make a put request on the signed URL. The good thing about the signed URL is, see, that signed URL is based on some meta information that was sent from the client. So if someone tries to tamper it later on, like if you change the file name or maybe you change something else, right, about the metadata, then that signature, the signed part of that URL is then not valid. So it's quite secure in that way. Okay, so the client gets the signed URL, it starts the put request, and now this communication is only between the client and the S3 bucket. The server is not at all now responsible or tracking what is happening, what is not. So in a way, we have completely offloaded the part of uploading file from the server to the client. Now, because it is happening on client, so what will happen is the client will continue the process, it can fail, we will have to have some retry mechanisms and stuff. But then when the file upload is done, the client knows it, the server doesn't. So what we do is we tell the client to again make a call. At this point, we have one more security concern, which is if you ideally want to be very secure with your file uploads, which you should be, because at some point I need to do a MIME type check. Okay. So what we do is once the file has been uploaded, the client knows about it. The client makes an API call to the server and says, hey, this file upload is complete. Can you now validate? So our server will again make a call to S3. It will download a few bytes of data, which typically is the header part of the file, and try to validate whether the MIME type is correct or not. Okay, because the validation of the MIME type should always happen on the server. And yes, we should always check the MIME type and not the extension, because extensions can be faked very easily. Okay, so we have validated the MIME type, and once the server knows that yes, the file has been uploaded and the file that has been uploaded is a valid accepted file format, we confirm that the file has been uploaded, we change the status, and our file is then ready for users to consume. Okay, so this, if you see, is a bit more complicated. Yes, the explanation took a little bit of time, but this is a bit complicated. However, it is scalable because now your front end is taking the load of uploading the file and not your server. Okay, now I will show you my application. Let me refresh. This is the starter kit which I have used. Life has been made so simple when we can use such beautiful UI using any of the starter kits. This is the React version that I'm using. Now I will do a select file. I will select these two. Okay. Not the download one, or maybe yes, the download one, because this one I have already uploaded before the demo so that I can confirm it is working. Now it will start the process. You can see it is doing its thing. My front end is responsible, and once this is done, it gives me the updated statuses. If I refresh, those things go away and I have my file list. I'll show you my S3 bucket as well. See, this is Amitav Roy file upload, uploads, user ID, and this user ID. If I refresh, oopsie, I have these 3 folders, and in them I should have all my files. Okay, the Himalayan insurance, the VStorm colors PDF, and the VStorm colors download file. Okay, and these are the 3 files that I have over here. Now I have them on S3 Now I have their records over here, but how does it work? So let's understand the code now, because that's what you are here for, right? So the APIs, first of all, I'll show you my web.php. I have a files URL, which is basically this page. Then I have a file upload URL, which generates the signed URL. So let's see what we are doing over here. You can see I have a request class, some basic validation rules in here. This is a protected method where I'm returning an array of my allowed extensions. Okay. Then authorize is true. These are my rules. I am checking for the file name, the MIME type I'm checking over here, the size I'm checking that it should be not more than 100 MB for now. You can change that. Some messages, standard stuff. Okay, anything about validation I have captured over here, nothing extraordinary. So once the data is validated, I create a unique file name. So this is the logic, a string UUID so that it is unique. Then I add the file name. I want to retain the file name. This is my folder, which is uploads, user ID, then a folder for the string UUID, and then the unique file name. Okay. Now, with this done, what I'm doing is I have started a transaction. In that transaction, I first create a file entry. Okay. I have the user ID, the file name, the original file name, MIME type, blah, 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 blah. All these things are there. And then I have this code, which is S3 service generate upload URL. What is it doing? And if you see, I'm passing two keys. The S3 key, okay? What is the S3 key? S3 key is the path, okay? And the MIME type. Fair enough. Let me go over here and see what we have done over here. So this S3 client, what is our S3 client? It is an instance of the Amazon SDK where I'm creating the S3 client. So it's the version, the region which I'm getting from my the file systems config file. Then my credentials which are in my env. All those things are pretty standard. I also have the bucket. So it creates a client object. So I'm using that client object. I'm doing a get command, and that get command is for put object, and these are the arguments. I'm saying this is the bucket, this is the key, this is the content type. Now, with this, I pass this command to the create presigned URL request. Okay, presigned request. So what it will do is give me a signed URL. I'll show you. I should be able to show you actually that signed URL thing. Okay. I should preserve log, do select, and I'll check the smaller one. Pending. This is the one which will give me the signed URL. Hold on. Confirm. Response. This is S3 key. This is not the one. Files. Not this. I should get that. Upload URL. Yes. This is the the signed URL which I got. You see here, https Amitav Roy file upload.s3.amazon.aws.com upload blah 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 blah. Okay, this is the entire signed URL. Can you see this? This is a big one. Okay, now what happened is front end got this signed URL. Where were we? We returned this signed URL from the service. The controller got the signed URL and we returned it to the front end. Once that is done, the front end, this is the index page, nothing major. You just need to understand that I have this file upload component, and this file upload component has this drag and drop area and this input type file. Okay. On the onChange event, I am calling the handle file select. And you can see it's a multi file select option, which means I can do multiple files as I showed you, right? I'll just close this one. Yeah. So it will invoke this function. It expects an array of files and it will pass this to this handle files function over here. What does it do? It first checks whether the file size is in our allowed limit or not, and if it is correct, then it will start this process. Okay, so I have this set uploading files, where I'm making that the state change, and then I have an iterator. So for let I equals this valid files, how many valid files did I get? I call the upload file. Okay, and again this is an async request, so I have an await, so it will wait for the thing to complete, and I am calling the upload file in within the loop, right? Because as I said, we can have multiple files, so we understand what the handle file does. So far we haven't made any API call. We checked the file size and updated the state, we executed the loop. Now what? In the upload file, this is where I am making the first API call. Files upload URL. Files upload URL. And that's the generate upload URL, which we saw over here. Right? So we got our signed URL from here. Once it got the signed URL, it makes this put call. Can you see this? So I got the URL here, constant data URL data. So I get the URL in here. I get the file. I get the I send the file to this URL with a put request. The header is here, and I have on upload progress to show that little bit of animation that is here. Okay. Now, this put request is where the major uploading is done. And once it is done, if you see over here, all right, Axios await, once it is done for that particular file, it will call the confirm API. So in the confirm API, what are we doing? Let's see. We have this. So confirm upload, again in my file controller. I kept it simple so that we have the entire code in one file so that it is easy for me to explain, but you can choose to have different controllers as well. Now, this is where we start the process of doing all the security checks, because the client has said something which obviously we should not trust. We should always validate ourselves what the client is saying. And so the first thing is I get a request and I get a file. Why? Because we have route model binding. So I get the file. This is the basic permission check. If the file's user ID is not equal to the request user ID, I throw an error. Now, this is a big try-catch block where I'm actually checking the file content match. Okay, what am I doing? I said, if you remember, that to verify that the file that got uploaded is correct or not, we need to read the header. So I am reading the first 512 bytes of the file. This is something in my service. Let's understand what it does. So we are using the client object that we had created and the constructor over here, right? And what we are doing is we are doing a get object. Get object is really a way to read the file. But in that, we have the ability to pass an argument that the range of bytes. So I'm saying that my range of byte is 0 to 512. And this is where our header sits. Okay. And we return that. Okay. So we have the headers. If the headers are empty, we send a negative response. And then because we want to read a file header, we are using finfo. Okay, this is what I found to be the most accurate one, so I'm using it. I'm creating an instance of finfo and I'm saying that I need to read the MIME type. Okay. If I don't have that instance, then I'm kind of throwing some error. This is a 500 error code saying that I can't, I'm not able to verify the file and stuff around that. Okay. Then if I pass this test, okay, and remember this is all in try catch, right? So if I get the instance of this finfo, I pass it to an finfo buffer. I pass the instance, I pass the headers. Headers is what I got from here, right? What we had read from the S3 bucket file, okay? And once I have the MIME type, I do the file info close. It is almost like if you have done vanilla PHP, you know that when you are working with databases, you open a connection, you make a query, and then you close the connection. Or even while reading a file, you open a file, you read, and then you close that file. So the same thing is here. Once that is done, if I see that the detect MIME type, if it is false or if it is empty, I mark that file to be failed. Okay, and I return the appropriate status code. But if it is not failed, I check whether the MIME type is equal to what was promised in the original MIME type. Because if you remember, when we had made the signed URL, which was generate upload URL, right? We had this MIME type. This came from the client. The client said that I'm uploading, let's say, a PDF. So the MIME type is there. Over here, I am reading the MIME type. And at this point, when I have read the header, if I feel that the header that I have read on the server by downloading the file from S3 is equal to what the client had promised, I mean, if it is not, then I mark it again, it has failed. And if that's the case, I, kind of mark it fail again over here because these are try catch. Otherwise, that try catch ends and I mark this as complete. And then I say that yes, successfully this has refreshed, and I do a file refresh as well. Okay. So a lot of code there, right? Once this post has happened, we set uploading files, and on complete, we are making some basic changes to the UI so that the page refreshes and everything. And if there are errors, I'm catching that. But with all these things, what has happened is, in a very secured way, we are now able to upload file from the browser to S3 and also validate those on our server and confirm a clean and secure file upload. So let's go back to our diagram, and here's what we see. It's a bit complicated, but it is very useful when you are dealing with a situation where there are a lot of users who are going to upload a lot of files, a lot of binary data, and at some point you want to free up your costly resources for your application's needs rather than file uploads. So yeah, that's it. Believe me, this is something which I generally ask a lot of people whom I interview as well, because if they are experienced developers, I strongly believe that when you are doing system designs, you should understand these kind of situations where when you are dealing with a lot of traffic, how do you handle that? You need to understand that this mechanism, although it is complicated, it introduces the performance improvement. It handles your bandwidth cost saving, because if you are on AWS, right, you will have to be careful about your bandwidth as well. And obviously you have utilized a lot of Amazon's S3 client behaviors, like reading the headers, so a specific range of bytes that we are reading, signed URLs and stuff. So yeah, that's about it. Hope you like this video. Please share your feedback and comments about these kind of videos, whether you like it or not, whether you find it useful or not. And yeah, If you like this video, do click on the thumbs up icon and don't forget to subscribe to my channel.